In any case, please continue the cross-examination. I'm afraid decisive contradictions call for decisive evidence.
Oh. Push him harder, Justice. Break him. It's just you and the witness in the ring. Go for the KO. Why do I get the feeling that we're not on our client's side anymore? Do we just press this again? Oh, I perceive my opponent's intent immediately. I'm used to... Okay, so this is the same thing as it was before. We didn't get any new information here. I find it interesting that he goes to this pose where he's like, right there. When I returned, he was dead, blood streaming from a cut on the forehead. That's what I find suspicious. I'm going to try presenting that photograph. Because he's not cut, really. He's bruised, right? Oh, I'm about to lose points. That's fine. What do you think about the witness's statement?
I'm not sure I follow you.
So, okay, it's not that. Okay, we took some points. Can we check the phone? Oh. What's on the back of the phone? Wow, the batteries are held in with a piece of tape. He should just buy a new one. Maybe he can't afford it. Or he just doesn't care. Well, that's interesting that we can do this. Beep, beep, beep. I want to beep the buttons. I can't. Are there more things to check that I haven't checked? Let's see. Time of death between 1:45 and 2:15 a.m. Cerebral hemorrhaging resulting from blunt trauma to forehead. That seems relevant. Although, maybe not. Yeah, we can check the attorney's badge. Here's our answer to everything. There's a number inscribed on the back of the badge. There are many numbers like it, but this one is mine. Proof that I'm an attorney. Should I present the phone here? Thanks! Let's try the phone. No! It's not that. Okay, it's not the phone here. We're losing some points, boys. Boys and girls. Oh yeah, if he was bleeding from the forehead, wouldn't you not have known that because he was wearing his hat still? Is this a hat clue? Aha! Ha ha! Mr. Wright, if I may? Yes? Take a look at this photograph of the crime scene. See the victim here? He's wearing a hat. I wouldn't think you could see blood on his forehead. Good point. Justice. Next time you point out an inconsistency, put a little more oomph into it.
Mr. Wright, can you explain this to the court?
Ah, I forgot to mention something. I was the one who put that hat on his head.
You put that on the dead man's head?
He wore it through our entire poker game. After calling the police, when I returned to the scene, his head was in full view. Shining bright like a diamond. Just like in this photograph.
And?
I picked his hat up off the floor and put it on his head.
Why'd you do a thing like that?
All I can say is, I'm sorry. But that's the only thing I touched at the crime scene. So, Miss O really didn't see it? It being the victim's, his head. I think not. She was out cold. I believe I was the only one who witnessed his head. Here we go again. Mr. Gavin? Ahem, pardon. It just seems that our client is determined to lie his way through this case. Hey, he's still our client, isn't he? I believe that's enough of that. Mr. Gavin? Gavin? Mr. Gavin? This witness's testimony is more like a travesty. It's riddled with lies. I'm beginning to see how you came to lose your attorney's badge 7 years ago. Well, you certainly have a unique way of treating your clients, Christoph. I never knew. I believe it was you who threw the first stone. Mr. Wright, if you intend to ever tell the truth about this case, it's now or never. Don't be misled. I haven't told a single lie here. Huh? When I noticed the trap, I put the card in the bottle to dispose of it. And when I put the hat on the victim's head, let's just say I had a reason for doing that as well.
Oh, a reason?
That reason is right here. Your cell phone? That night, recall that I spoke with Defense Attorney Gavin after calling the police. Just in case, I recorded our conversation. What's this? Now that we're all here, I see no reason why I shouldn't play it back for the court. Maybe I'll do that. Christoph, I seem to be in a bit of trouble. What's this? Game not going well. Something like that. That gentleman who challenged you, he turned out to be good? He turned out to be dead. Someone hit him hard. You mean someone cracked that flawless bone china pate? Plate, I guess, is supposed to be. It wasn't you, was it? Me? Please. The cops should be here any minute. I'm in your hands. Should have come to that. Bone china plate? A kind of porcelain, very smooth and shiny. And not plate, but pate. I believe he was referring to a certain gentleman's balding forehead.
The court appreciates the defendant's discretion in not indicating my forehead.
Wait a second. Something's not right about that phone call. So, after Mr. Gavin ate dinner with you, he left the Borscht Bowl Club. Most certainly. Then how did he know? When did he see this bone china pate?
Oh, that's right.
Yes, that was when I began to see my good friend in a different light. Troubled, I returned to the crime scene. And when I spotted Mr. Smith's head again, I realized exactly what was wrong. Well, Mr. Gavin, the stage has been set. Perhaps you would like to explain this to the court? Exactly how did you come by your privileged knowledge of the victim's head? So, this is your reason. The reason why you put the victim's hat back on. Your point, Mr. Gavin? It's come down to this, has it, Phoenix Wright?
Order! I will have order! Mr. Payne!
Yes, Your Honor.
I believe this court has been left with no other choice. Are you prepared to hear Defense Attorney Gavin's testimony?
Well, Mr. Prosecutor,
You're out of this! You're not even doing anything, Payne! Get out! This is us versus Gavin. Just go away.
Very well, we'll break for 10 minutes. After which, Mr. Gavin will take the stand for a cross-examination. Are we all clear on that?
Crystal clear, Your Honor.
Very well. This will be the final recess for the day.
Wow. Moving along. Mr. Gavin and Mr. Wright are both in the judge's chamber. Who'd have thought today would turn out like this? May I? Oh! Huh? What?
Hello, sir. Please, pick a card.
What? Is this one okay?
Excellent. I have a message for you. The last hand is about to be played. You'll need a trump card to make it.
A trump card?
The card you have chosen is magical. Use it wisely, and the game is yours. That's all.
An ace. Where do I remember that card from? There's blood on that ace. There's blood on the ace.
Mr. Smith's hand was 3 aces, and Mr. Wright's was 2. It is 5 aces in all. It is true, I have seen it. The 5th ace. There was cheating, I swear to you.
The missing 5th ace. Wait, this blotch of red. Is it actually a heart? From a heart? The ace of hearts?
You have your trump card. Now it's up to you to cut the deck and draw. The truth? My father's fate is in your hands. I know you can do it.
Smoke bomb, vanish! Doves fly everywhere! Trucy away! This bloodstained card is my trump card for finding the truth. I fell deep into thought as my mind raced to understand what this all meant. Blood or borscht? Could be a borscht card. That girl, I'd seen her recently. But where? She told you where! She said her father's fate is in your hands. You defending very many people right now, Apollo? That's when I made the connection. Do. Bloody Ace, added to the court record. Bloody Ace sounds like a cool band name. Oh, Bloody Ace! We're going to be playing our hit record, Blood on the card table.
Court will now reconvene. Defense Attorney Gavin, will you please take the stand? Nothing. If you would, Mr. Payne.
Yes, Your Honor. Well, the witness state his name and occupation.
Is this fast necessary, Your Honor?
Believe me, far stranger things have gone on in this courtroom. Whew.
Fine, I'll play along.
First, there's one thing we need to have made clear. How did you know about this secret beneath the victim's hat?
By secret, I'm guessing he means the fact that Mr. Smith was bald. Yes, Apollo, yes! Forgive my curiosity, but what is it about this fellow's head? Your Honor seems to have an inordinate interest in it. That's mean! Don't be mean to the judge! What? I wouldn't call it inordinate, Mr. Gavin. Mr. Wright? What do you think you're doing, Mr. Wright? Well, things sure look different from the other side. You know what I mean, Apollo? Speaking of looking from the other side, let's consider something for a second. The victim wore that hat all night, never once taking it off, except for that one time. That one time being the instant he was hit.
Whoa!
When Mr. Wright returned from reporting the crime, Mr. Wright picked it up and placed it on the victim's head. In other words, in order to have seen Mr. Smith's bald head, you would have had to be at the scene of the crime, at the time of the crime. In other words, you'd have to be the real killer. Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah? Not bad, Apollo.
Mr. Gavin?
I'm afraid that I haven't been entirely honest with the court.
What?
Oh, I assure you, I had the noblest of intentions. I did it all to protect my client, Mr. Wright. Yet I'm afraid in the current situation, I see little reason to hide anything. Very well, allow me to tell you the truth of what happened that night.
Finally, you may begin your testimony. Tell us, how were you involved in the events of that fateful night?
The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked into the little window to the hideout. It must have been right after the murder took place. The victim was dead, as he appears in the photo. A bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. I sensed that was not the best place for me to be at the time, and so I left. That's when the call came from Wright. He called you, and you were already there.
So you witnessed the murder?
For better or worse, I missed the actual moment of the deed.
Mr. Gavin, may I remind you that you are on Mr. Wright's defense team? Your testimony is clearly disadvantageous to your client.
What else could I say? I'm standing on the witness stand after all. So you are, Mr. Gavin. And you had to testify as you just did. You had to tell them you saw the scene of the crime through that little window. Mr. Wright? You had to say that. Because that was the only probable window of opportunity. Right, Apollo? Oh.
Mr. Wright, the defense should do the cross-examination, not the defendant. Mr. Justice, are you prepared?
Yes, Your Honor. I can't believe I'm going up against Mr. Gavin. My teacher. My mentor. The trial's getting weirder and weirder. That fateful night. The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked into the little window. Oh yeah, let's go. Wait, go back. Press. Rage. There's rage in that man. That man, you mean Mr. Smith? He was different from the other customers. His aura, shall we say. I knew he was a serious poker player, but it was more than that.
So then you knew the true nature of your client's job?
Of course, but I also knew he was engaged in gambling, which would be illegal. Well, it makes sense that he'd know they were friends, after all. Worried for my friend, I returned to the club. You see, I feared this Mr. Smith might be someone coming to settle an old score.
I see. What happened then?
Went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout. The little window? You mean the one used to keep watch up the stairs? Yes, a relic of the ancient past. The black marketeers used it, I believe. Why did you go through the trouble of peeking into the window? Wouldn't it have been easier to just open the door and go into the room? I didn't want to upset Wright. You see... Upset Mr. Wright? Yes, what if my fears had been unfounded? I'd be walking in on their match. Bad form, to say the least. So far everything he's saying makes sense. He must have been right after the murder took place. How do you know it was right after the murder? Really, no need to shout, Justice. I was just getting to that part in my testimony. Ah, there he is. The coolest defense in the West we know and love. Even when you're standing up there on the witness stand, some things never change. I was afraid you'd change too, Wright, but you haven't. You and that overbearing personality of yours. With friends like these, who needs enemies? The victim was dead, as he appears in the photo. By photo, you mean the second photograph of the crime scene? Precisely. You see, he wasn't wearing his hat then. I saw his head when he was dead. And then Mr. Wright came along and replaced his hat.
Can you describe the scene of the crime for us?
A bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. Those are the only three at the scene of the crime? Yes, as far as I saw at least.
Then we're back where we started. The killer was the defendant, Phoenix Wright. Who else could it have been? But why didn't you talk to the police?
2 reasons. First, I didn't actually witness the very moment of the crime. Second, my office was asked to defend Wright. Even after seeing what I had seen, I couldn't abandon my friend. Catface. You. There must have been someone else there at the moment of the crime. Justice, I just said I saw no one, not a soul. But that goes against what Mr. Wright said! Ah, yes. This mysterious fourth person. Who would conveniently be the real killer, I suppose. Glad to see we agree, Mr. Gavin. Let me pose a question, then. Tell me, what possible reason did the real killer have to swap cards in the victim's hand? Perhaps you can show us a reason why such a thing would be necessary. How can I show something I can't find myself? Remember, Apollo, the card that was swapped out was the 5th ace. The 5th ace, right.
Well, Mr. Justice,
The question of why the
killer would swap out a card has been raised.
Can you point to a reason? Yes, do we show our evidence? It's not because you're giving Nick a motive, although that might be part of it. I think it's to hide the evidence of whose blood is on the card. The defense would like to present evidence to the court. Evidence showing the reason why a card was swapped out.
Then go ahead and point out your reason, Mr. Justice. Why did the killer take the 5th ace?
My reason is, this.
Is that an ace?
Why, it's got blood on it. Bloody Ace, my favorite band, right next to the spade.
What?
This is insane! Why wasn't I told about this? Bloody Ace is my favorite band! Why?
Could this be? Could this be the missing 5th ace?
Inconceivable. How could you? What are you doing with that card? Well, that's the thing. Why is Mr. Gavin so upset? It's just a fishy card from some fishy girl. Oh, that card. It's mine. That is, I picked it up at the Borscht Bowl Club that night, after the murder had occurred. I gave it to my daughter. Cards are her stock in trade, after all. No, impossible. Unacceptable. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. A fraud? How can you be so sure? What? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene. The real killer. Oh, it was a trap? Allow me to elaborate. What if this trace of blood was the reason?
The reason
for the killer to take the card from the scene of the crime.
Where are you going with this?
Take another look at the photo, and at the victim's head. At the moment of the crime, his hat fell to the floor, and a trickle of blood ran from his forehead down the back of his head. Couldn't a drop of that blood have fallen on one of the cards? I suppose! The killer then took the card to hide the blood. Regardless, that evidence is non-permissible. Oh? Right. Regardless of how you wasted the last 7 years you used to be a lawyer, you know what a serious crime it is to conceal evidence. Oh, we can discuss the finer points of our legal system later. What's important now is that I've answered your question. What are you talking about? You wanted to know why the killer would have taken a card from the crime scene? And now I've told you. That one drop of blood would have been decisive evidence, you see. This is baseless conjecture. Baseless. The finger! Oh, I assure you, it's quite based. What? It's amazing, really, how a single drop of blood on a single card can lead us to the truth. It's quite simple. Well, Apollo? Yes? Try picturing the scene of the crime in your head. Whoa! We're getting 3D! The murder took place in the hideout. The body of the luckless victim was found at the poker table, and before the killer swapped a card out, there was a single card with a drop of blood on it in the victim's hand. Given this, there's one decisive problem with this scene.
Well, what is it?
Let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on a card, who whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? The victims? The killers? The witnesses? The second witnesses? Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card? If it's his card on the ace, the victim shouldn't be where he is because the card was on the other side, right? Well, isn't the victim's position that's the problem?
I don't follow your logic here, Mr. Justice.
Well, look, the victim was struck on the head, sending him back in his chair. You'd think any blood would fall behind the body, not onto the table in front of him.
Ah!
Take a look at the photo again. If he bled in this position, the blood would fall on the floor, not on the cards.
Why, that's right. So what does this mean?
Incidentally, we were sitting in swivel chairs. Swivel chairs? Oh, man. Apollo, try turning the chair around.
The chair was facing the other way?
It would have to be. So we have to assume that at the time of the murder, the victim's chair was facing away from the table.
When Mr. Wright returned from informing the police, which way was the chair facing?
When I came back to the room, the body was facing as seen in this photo. That would mean the killer turned the chair back around. Let's take the next step. Look at the diagram once more. We know now the victim was facing away from the table at the time of the murder. But this creates another significant contradiction.
Again?
You're still here, Payne? Let's test your reasoning skills again, shall we? Apollo, whose location on this diagram contradicts our new understanding of the crime? The victims? The killers? The witnesses? The second witnesses? Whose location creates a contradiction if the victim was facing away? I guess it would have to be the supposed killer, because why would they be facing away from him, right? The victim was struck from the front, correct? Indeed. Well, wouldn't it be hard for the killer to hit him from the front? Sitting where his indicator currently is? I would think it'd be quite hard, yeah.
Yes, but what you're saying makes no sense. Why would the victim suddenly turn to face the wall in the middle of a game?
I believe a sufficient reason will come to light.
What?
There's something in this diagram that makes far less sense, actually. Look again at the diagram. Apollo, if the victim was struck while he was sitting as shown here, where would his assailant be standing? Try marking it on the diagram. What? But there's no room to put a mark where the killer should be. Don't worry, let's think it through and see what we find. We know the victim was facing toward the wall at the time of the crime. That's the only thing we know for sure. Try to forget about everything else. Where would the killer have to be standing to strike our victim from the front? It'd be standing in the middle of whatever this chest is, I guess. Right? The killer had to be standing, well, here.
You get points for flair, but that's about all you get.
I thought I was onto something there, too.
I hardly need to point out that standing there would be impossible. The victim is facing a solid cupboard. Or are you claiming the killer climbed the cupboard and hit him from above?
It's simple logic, really. If this was the only place the killer could have been standing, then that means that at the very moment of the crime... Wait, I know! At the moment of the crime, the cupboard wasn't there.
What's this now?
I mean, that's the only explanation, right, Mr. Gavin? Your Honor, I have a suggestion for the defense. We should arrange to examine the cupboard in the hideout immediately.
Bailiff, send a team to the crime scene immediately. Have them try to move the cupboard.
Your Honor?
What?
There's one more thing your men should look for. Please give this to the bailiff.
Yes, I see. You do belong in the courtroom after all, Mr. Wright.
I do my best. But let's forge ahead here, while we wait. Look at the diagram once again. It's been changed. If the killer was standing here at the time of the crime, then this cupboard wasn't here, which means, Apollo, try moving the cupboard. Oh, thank you. As you see, the cupboard was the problem. At the time of the murder, it has to have been as shown here. Now, everything is in place to reconstruct the moment of the crime. Oh my! What's this?
What is it now?
Look at the diagram of the crime scene once more. It appears we've found yet another contradiction. What I believe to be the final contradiction. In fact... Huh? Oh, dang! Notice something, Apollo? Our line of deduction is rapidly approaching its logical conclusion.
Now then, Mr. Justice, please point to the new contradicting indicator. Is it the victim, the killer, the witness, the second witness?
The second witness couldn't have seen crap. About this cupboard, are we all okay with assuming it was moved? Sure, why not? Well, if it was, something really doesn't fit. The cupboard would completely cover up the window to the stairs. That's right, someone standing outside wouldn't be able to see in. Someone like Mr. Gavin. What? Thought did you say? Oh, is the coolest defense in the West losing his cool? Don't expect me to play along with your little game, right? It's only a game until someone gets killed, Mr. Gavin. And someone was, while the window to that room was blocked by a cupboard. So, Mr. Gavin, perhaps you'd like to explain to the court exactly where did you witness the crime scene from? Excuse me, Your Honor!
Order! This is a court of law, and I will have order.
We just now received word from our investigative team at the Bush Bull Club. They have examined the cupboard in the hideout, Your Honor.
Oh, and what did they find?
Well, Your Honor, it turns out there was a secret passage behind it.
What?
Yes, I believe I mentioned something of the sort before. This is one of the tricks to the room many of our regulars know about. I do remember him saying something about that now that he mentions it. A secret passage is a handy thing to have when you're engaged in illegal goings-on. You never know when you might need to duck away from the eyes of the law. So the room has a secret passage. Where does it go? The other side connects to the restaurant above. The underworld bosses could get away from the cops and enjoy a cold bowl of borscht, no doubt. Just like our killer. You see where our line of simple deductive reasoning has led us, Apollo? I see it, but I don't believe it.